Hi, my name's Harry. I'm originally from Coventry. I moved out there to Redditch when I was about 3 or 4. I lived there for most of my life, and about a year ago I moved to Malvern, where I'm currently studying applied theology at Regent's Theological College. I'm just going to take a few minutes to tell you about my life story and how I came to where I am today. I'm originally from Coventry, where I lived there with my mum and my dad and my elder brother. My dad was very aggressive towards my mum. He had temper issues and he used to knock her about a bit. When my little brother was born, my mum got the courage to divorce my father and we moved away from Coventry to Redditch. The physical abuse that he did towards my mum had an adverse effect on her mentally and physically, which in turn affected us as children. It affected me pretty badly because I got this justification that violence was the answer, and during first school I went off the rails and I beat people up, and I just always want to be violent towards other people. This effect was amplified by the fact that I lived on a very rough estate. People would threaten to rape my mum, they'd throw bricks at the house, we'd get abuse all the time. I remember one time that I was walking home and I walked past this garden. I saw my older brother being held down by 2 lads, where another lad started beating the crap out of him. And it really did hurt, to be honest. I started loving the violence, I started lusting after the violence. I had nightmares from the age of 11 of watching people getting tortured. I used to sit next to my best mates and imagine hurting them just for the joy of the blood. This turned into an alcohol and drug addiction problem, where I'd find my release in these false highs that made you feel worse the day after, to be honest. I'd go out, get hammered, and then wake up the next day and then have to keep getting hammered to try and feel alive in any sense. I was quite a big bloke. I used to be able to handle myself, but I was scared of the dark up until I was about 15, 16. I didn't want to turn out the lights and go to sleep because of these nightmares that were happening because of the life I was living. And this is what became my reality. This was the pain of my heart, and we can pretend that I was having fun, but deep down I was just hurting myself over and over again. When I was about 18, my mum was being made a member of the local church, and this was a massive thing for her, so she wanted me and my brothers to go along and watch and to support her. This didn't fit into my lifestyle. I wasn't into going to church. I didn't want anything to do with church, so I kept telling her no. She kept asking, so eventually I agreed just to stop her from nagging me. We went to church and the pastor was preaching. I sat on my chair on my own, not paying attention to anybody else, and I started asking all these questions of God. Where were you when I was hurting, and what were you doing here? If you're real, why did this happen? And straight away the pastor was answering my questions that I was thinking in my head with his sermon, and he really did speak into my life that day. Like, it really did make an impact on me. And I left feeling very confused. I went home, opened up a bottle of vodka like I normally would, and for some reason I just shut the bottle of vodka back up, threw it underneath my bed, and I started listening to worship music for the rest of the night for several hours. This was the only time I felt comfortable and at peace. So following that, I didn't go out for a few days. I was very confused still, and my mates started texting me, asking me where I was, why I wasn't going out drinking. So I decided that I'd go out on that Wednesday to try and save some face with them. And I went out with them and I had a few beers, but I wasn't really comfortable. I was still very confused over what had happened the previous Sunday. So I made a decision that I'd go back to church the following Sunday and to try and look more into it. I got to church that Sunday and the pastor was preaching on the life and death and resurrection of Christ. And he was preaching about how my sin and my bad things blocked me from a relationship with God. They put this barrier in between me and God that meant I couldn't communicate with him and he couldn't communicate with me. And that Jesus died to take that away, and that he died to take away my sins and took the death, which was the punishment for my sins, and so I could live. And then he rose again to give me a hope of eternal life in heaven. He was there on the seat next to me, and I could feel him there, I could hear him there as he was showing me all the bad things that I did in my life. He was showing me about how what I did was wrong, the attitude I had was wrong, and how it was hurting other people and hurting him. I felt this glory around me where he was showing me of who he was and how holy and how perfect he was. So I felt the need to go forward and give my life to him. I know it was the right decision. So I got to my knees and I gave my life to him. I told him I was sorry and how I loved him. And I came up from the floor and my chains were broken. I stopped being addicted to drugs, I stopped being addicted to alcohol, I stopped being addicted to violence. I was crying for the first time in many, many years. I hugged somebody, it was so unreal for me. I went from hatred to love. And he really did bring me back from the abyss that day. He took me from death to life. If listening to this has struck up any curiosity in your heart in any way, I'd really encourage you to go ask questions about God. I wasn't looking for him, and he found me and he transformed me, changed my life for the better. So if you have questions, ask them. If you want to seek, seek, and I promise you will find the answers to your life, and he will change you.